Welcome, my friends, to episode 177 of Prof and Dev Play Games. I am the Professor Larry at Prof Plays Games on Twitter. Over there is Anthony, the Dev at Summer Speak, under a little bit of snow up in Seattle.
Yeah, just a little over an inch, but we'll see what I wake up to tomorrow. It's really cold. I don't think it's supposed to get above 32 degrees tomorrow.
Dang.
And it's supposed to be very cold the entire week.
You're getting the polar vortex over there, huh?
I guess so. I've been waiting for this, honestly. This seems pretty typical of the Seattle Pacific Northwest now. Get a few months of pretty cold weather. Not really cold, but below freezing.
Yeah, our Midwest listeners are like, you don't know what cold is.
No, I really don't, actually. Whenever I see things of like negative 32 degrees with wind chill of negative 51, I'm like, yeah, no. I'm completely okay not experiencing that in my lifetime. Okay.
There was a day during the vortex where my friend from Peace Corps was in Minnesota, and obviously I'm in San Diego, and it was 100-degree difference, and it was like 58 degrees here. So yeah, in Ukraine it was super cold. It was like negative 20 Celsius or something. It was really, really cold. Couldn't even breathe. It hurt to breathe.
Yeah.
That was like 2 weeks of terrible. People were dying in the streets. You know, the homeless population, the vulnerable population. Kind of the same thing that happened here, unfortunately. That's a lot of bad news. Some good news is I have a Steam key to give you. This is a key for a little game called Psychonauts, which maybe some of you have played, but if not, go ahead and throw this into your Steam. It is HB6CL2AWXN W25ZL, and that's for Psychonauts on that old Steam machine. So please redeem and let us know what you think about it. This week we are going to have a discussion that one of our Patreon supporters has asked us to talk about. This is for Ted, and Ted has a little short message that says, "Have you seen my friend Gavin?" Gavin! Apparently this is a Red Dead Redemption 2 thing that I don't get at all, but
no.
Part of Patreon, we read your little message, but then we also have a question from Ted. We're going to discuss this week, and then we're going to get to what we are playing. So why don't we just dive right in here? Ted asks us, is there anything that we feel is missing or just hasn't been tackled properly in the wide world of video games? I think I have a lot of things to say, and I'm sure that you have a few things that you think are missing.
I think I want to first preface this with going, I feel like games are capable of everything from a standpoint of telling stories and emotions and everything, but there are definitely places that haven't been tackled or have been very poorly tackled.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say me making games, I don't believe that there's anything that a game couldn't do to subject it couldn't tackle or present. It's wide open. But I just feel like there's a lot of places that devs, for whatever reasons, have not gone or shy away from going.
Right. Well, before we get into this real quick, just if you want to put in a topic like Ted did, go ahead and go over to patreon.com and search for Prof and Dev Play Games. $1 tier, you get a little short message read on our show, and a $5 tier, we will use your question for a discussion. So with the caveat that you just put out there, why don't you tell us the first thing you've got on your list for something that's missing or not tackled properly?
It's not. I didn't write like a list of specific things, but there's definitely one thing. And I feel like this is more out of a systemic problem right now, and it's slowly changing, but you don't get a lot of games that tackle marginalized voices.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not... I think that is a systemic problem because there's not a lot of... Where video games are a technical medium, for the most part, it does take some technical skills to make a game. And traditionally, currently, that is a very... male-centric industry,
right?
Which flows right into video games, especially and usually white male. So you don't see a lot of marginalized voices getting pushed into games or tackling subjects that might be interesting there. One, I don't think the current devs even think about it, and two, I don't think even the ones that might think about it, even myself thinking about it, I don't feel like I'm properly informed and should be doing those stories.
Right, 'cause you feel like you're appropriating in some way. Like it's not.
I'm not. I don't use the word. I don't think I'm appropriating. I just don't feel like it could convey what it means. I've never been through it.
Right.
So I would be weirdly relaying. I'm sure I have friends and I have people I know, and I could talk to them, and they would give me all sorts of great stories and information and things I could pull from. But it's still filtered through me, and that shouldn't. I feel like there'd be video games could be better serving those populations and telling stories of marginalized voices. And hopefully in the future they will, as more of those people are making games becomes easier, and more of those people get hopefully pushed or see that they can make those games.
Because that's part of the issue right now, what you bring up, where a certain demographic is making the games, and they're sure that the pool is getting more diverse, but it feels like sometimes the way that marginalized voices get put into games is maybe through focus groups, or like they run the story through them to see what they think and to add feedback, but it's not really being generated by them so much as just kind of run by a panel almost.
Exactly, that happens a lot. And even like whenever you look at, I could even go less marginalized voices. How many women are the game directors?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I can name some pretty high profile women in the industry, but rarely are they the director of the game. They might be a designer, they might be narrative, high profile artists. I know a few programmers that are pretty high up there, but they're not the ones really making the decisions on the overall product. And even that changing would probably drastically change what type of games we'd be seeing, especially out of the AAA space. I actually think the indie space has been pretty good about this so far, and that's where you're seeing a lot of this, but you don't see it bubbling up as much into that AAA, where you talk a lot. There's a lot more focus grouping being done.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty typical of the AAAs.
And do you think it's not bubbling up to the AAAs? I mean, partially because of some of the things you mentioned about who's there and who's making the games, but also because AAA developers or the companies are risk adverse because of the money.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are very, very risk averse, which I get. There's investors and there's money there, but I feel like that there'd probably be plenty of money to be made if they made some pretty big AAA games. That, like, one of the things that I've thought of, that why isn't there games that really tackle more controversial subjects, of not even like in a superficial way. Like I always come back to Assassin's Creed 3. Try to start touching on the Native American storyline with colonization and kind of the oppression of Native Americans in the United States. But it never really pushed on that subject a ton. It was there, but they definitely didn't want to dive into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, well, that would be probably worthwhile to actually dive into if there was Native Americans making the game, like pushing it, going like, no, games allow you to emotionally connect and have empathy. You might be able to reach a large audience by pushing people to like realize like there's some horrible stuff done here. You should understand this at a base level, from a historical standpoint, from a caring human standpoint.
Right.
But a lot of the AAAs don't want to push that far because there will be pushback, I'm sure. But it might be worthwhile.
Well, this topic is something that was on my list as well when Ted brought this subject up. In terms of, I keep comparing it to movies, where a couple years ago, I think it was during the Oscars, Best Movie, maybe they won Best Movie, I think it was. Best Picture, it was Moonlight.
Yep.
Which, if you're going to think about like AAA movies, like some of the superhero movies or whatever, like big budget movies, Moonlight wasn't one of the big budget movies. However, it was able to be seriously considered for that kind of award and ultimately win it, because I think there's less discrepancy between the quality, and I don't mean quality of like, how to say this, I don't mean the quality of like the acting or the writing, but I mean like when you look at it. If you look at like an independent movie versus like a AAA movie, sure, there are some special effects or whatever, and that difference is there, but if you're looking at just take away the special effects and it's just like filming actors, I feel like it could look pretty similar to
It's
most
true.
eyes. But then you look, if you go to video games, AAA versus indie, I feel like you really need to have a huge budget for it to look like photorealistic, like Uncharted.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's harder for indie games that are taking those risks to be taken as seriously as the heavy hitters. Like the Game Awards, for example, Celeste was up for Game of the Year, but when everyone was talking about that list, no one was seriously considering Celeste to win Game of the Year. Whereas if that were movies and the even playing field in terms of the graphics, maybe, I don't know if it would have or wouldn't have, but it feels like it's easier for the risk-taking movies to compete with the AAA quote-unquote movies than in games.
And definitely movies are weird because you actually typically see on the like award circuit for movies, it's the indie movies that are the ones that are typically put up there more often than. I mean, it's a huge deal that Black Panther is even up for Best Picture at the Oscars.
Well, it's a huge deal because it's the first superhero movie, right?
Yeah,
that's it's like not only like superhero movie, but I don't know what they call it exactly, but like the not casual movie, but just like the mass appeal or whatever it's called.
It's a pop culture movie.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. It's a summer blockbuster pop culture movie. It is rare that those make it into consideration for Best Picture. Most Best Picture and things like Best Director or anything like that is in movies tends to be these smaller, more personal indie stories. Like
and
it's reversed than what video games are. So,
and I wonder what, and maybe you've already touched on it, what is keeping things static, where the risk-taking smaller games or even bigger games to take bigger risks aren't really bubbling up to the top in those kind of conversations. And it might be the homogenous group of games, people making the games, or the homogenous group of people who enjoy the games. I feel like marginalized voices have been kind of excluded from fandom even. Yeah, I think we've seen it. At least I have seen it. I've noticed it recently, listening to a bunch of podcasts, reading a bunch of stuff about Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out, and people kind of making fun of it and the convoluted story and kind of not taking it super seriously. And I heard a really interesting critique on maybe it was Split Screen this week of one of the guests basically going to task with someone who was kind of dissing the game because of a number of different factors that the speaker felt like they were dissing it because a lot of the fandom for that game from 1 and 2 and all the sequels or whatever, or the spin-offs or whatever, tended to be like quote-unquote like teenage girls. Like obviously the whole fandom is not that, but it kind of skewed that way. And there's it just feels like people who like this person was kind of, for me, showing me a prism where people were feeling like they were marginalized because they were fans of this game in a way that would exclude them from gaming conversations, for example.
Yeah, they just wouldn't be taken seriously.
Exactly. Whereas if you're a fan of like God of War or Spider-Man, you seem to be taken more seriously than as a fan of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, it's always a problem. It's been for a while, but I actually do think that there's some of that in. I mean, games are big enough; they're bigger than movies in a lot of ways now. I think they make money-wise, so you see similar problems in movies, and I think that is more. I don't know how long that's been going on, honestly, or if it's more noticeable and a byproduct of the internet age.
Right.
And the collision of
out there.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't remember this when pre-internet, when I loved all sorts of things, but I was also, pre-teen, beginning a teenager there. Like I never felt like I was being made fun of for things that I liked. No one seemed to care, but I never people weren't just throwing their opinions around everywhere. They didn't feel like they needed to. It's just like what you like. It's cool. Now it feels very different. Like, Star Wars has proven that to me.
Oh,
like,
God,
huge divisions in that fandom of like what you can like and not like, and right. It's like just toxic. But I also see that same toxicity just spreading, if not just embedded in pretty much every fandom in some way.
Yeah, and I think the internet has obviously allowed us to have larger fandoms and niches to find their community, but at the same time to propagate all sorts of comments and seemingly right now toxic comments are rising to the top. But when you mention that, I think about things that I liked in the quote unquote pre-internet age that the internet was around, but like things like Dragonlance. Like when I think about Dragonlance as fantasy literature, it's not super highbrow, but it was something that I really
great,
liked.
But
exactly.
it's a fun time.
Right.
Not great, but fun time.
But to come out as someone who was just like obsessed, like I was obsessed with Dragonlance for a while. Like that's all I read. I just loved it, like all the different stories. To think about that now, I feel like that would be looked down upon a little bit because it's not like serious literature, right? It's just a fun time, and it's easier to find groups. It's easier for people to band together who are making fun of certain things or putting certain things down. And I feel like the toxicity, which is something that I immediately thought of with Ted's question here, something's missing or not been tackled properly, is just disappointment and how quickly that turns into toxicity. And something we're seeing right now is with Anthem, where I'm pretty excited about Anthem. I'm going to talk about what I've been playing later, my time with that this weekend. I'm trying to like go online to like the different forums like Reddit and whatever else, YouTube comments, and well, not YouTube comments, but just like YouTube videos and people talking about Anthem, trying to find people who are positive about the game and looking forward to it and learning about. I want to learn more about the game because I'm finally like interested in it and I haven't been. And 90% of what I found is just super negative, like really crushingly negative. And part of it seems like there's a group of people who, because this is part of EA, they want EA to hurt. So they want this game to fail no matter what. And that toxicity is something that I think just comes from disappointment of EA, disappointment of them canceling games or disappointment with their loot box thing or whatever. And that's just turned into like just mob hate. Like we're just going to destroy anything that's related to EA so we can teach them a lesson. And it's like the energy that goes into that kind of hate. I just wish that energy could be harnessed in a different way. And I feel like the online communities have enabled people, disenabled. I'm going to coin that word, disenabled people to use that energy for something that's really disappointing.
Oh, I agree. And to bring that back into like games itself and what they're not tackling, and they're trying, is toxicity. And actually we're now getting to a point, and I've been doing a lot of research and stuff on this because the game that I'm actually making, one of our key pillars is a social pillar to it.
Oh boy.
And we are I am honestly seeing this too. I'm tired of being lonely while playing games when I'm playing an online game. So I love playing Magic the Gathering Arena right now. Hearthstone I've enjoyed, and played some Overwatch, the whole thing. Could you tell me if you were playing with people or bots?
No, not at all.
Ever? Mm-mm. No, because you hit a play button, you're grouped, and you go. There is zero connection to another human being in another place at all. They don't want to. They just want you to run games quickly. This has been something that started. I remember it back in World of Warcraft. So vanilla World of Warcraft, if you wanted to get a group to do a dungeon or do a raid, you had to post in chat and go like, "Hey, I'm looking for group. Want to run what was it? Blackstone Mountain, or Stratholme, or whatever." You would say what you were trying to run, and you're looking for the group, and you need DPS or heals or whatever. But it required you to actually like talk in the chat, just very basically. And then it wasn't Burning Crusade, I don't believe. I believe it was the next expansion where they introduced Group Finder. So you just queue.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you just queue and you just go into a group you and you just go play a dungeon. It was great. It was super fast to get dungeons, but I realized at that point, I already had a solidified kind of guild and coworkers, and so we'd play together. So that I still had that community, but people that didn't have that, they weren't getting any connection anymore. They didn't need it. They could just queue up and get matched with random people from different servers eventually to run an instance, and then be done and never see those people ever again.
Yeah, in a way, like to make things more efficient, to kind of sanitize the experience. That connection has been.
And I actually think it's wrong. I think that this is I get where it was coming from like, hey, we want to get more people playing the content. Great. But at what cost?
Right. Well, yeah, because we have removed ourselves from conversations with each other that almost boiled down to now just like screaming over the mic in like a first-person shooter about someone's mom or hateful words. And to their credit, I think Bungie resisted doing matchmaking for their raids and such, partially because they said that like you really need good communication to do these things.
Yeah, that's for raids. You still quick connected for strikes, which is what most people actually do.
Correct, but people were, I think they finally landed with Destiny 2 where they're trying to do like the looking for group thing or whatever it was, but they resisted that for a long time, and it's interesting because part of their, obviously part of it was like you need to have good communication, you need to know who you're working with, want to make sure that they stay on and all this stuff, but also part of it was like we want you to talk to each other, and they're, the Reddit forums or whatever about like just looking for people, like the communication was happening there, and it was just like you're right, just like a small strata of that game, and the rest was quick matchmaking. And then for Destiny 2, they said, okay, we're gonna do this somewhat matchmaking for the raids.
And I get it, and because you want people to experience the content and not go out, but like things like Magic the Gathering Arena, there's plenty of games because you can't talk to the other person in that game. You can just do the quick emotes of like good game or oops, nice, thanks, whatever. You can actually have like 5 options, like a lot like Hearthstone.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get communication really. But there's so many times when I'm playing a game there that I would love to just chat a message, not like a rude message, just say something like, hey, that was a rough game for you. Do you want to talk about your deck?
Right.
Like, what's going on? Like that, what I would do in like a game store when I'm playing against someone new or someone I like, and it's clear that they're new. Let's talk through what you did, what you can do, be positive and help them out. There's so many times I just want to say more, but I can't. And it's really disappointing. And it's one of the things that, like I said, the game that I'm working on and making, that we're pretty sure we're not going to have a instant play button. That's not in our goals or our design.
Mm-hmm.
We want we're going to do stuff about like matchmaking putting you in rooms with people that are typically you play against, more frequently you've played against, but also are on play during the time frames you play the type of games you typically like to play. Basically match you affinity wise for people that are similar to you that you would probably like to play against. And hopefully you will continue to play against them and make bonds and connections and actually create those games. You can see games where people have put down and like, hey, I'm looking for a player. And you can browse those and just choose someone that you want to play against. You can invite people, but we're pretty much against. We want to rehumanize that play experience, that online experience.
Well, it's interesting. I'm starting to think about something I haven't thought about in this context. Obviously I'm a professor, and my life is basically college students. And lately I've been thinking about how I develop lessons and tying that to like video game tutorials, and like there's these connections that are starting to happen between my profession and my hobby that I haven't had before, kind of crossing these things and seeing the Venn diagram and where they connect. But one of them specifically is about connecting students to each other. There's a lot of research about especially commuter campuses where if students can make at least one connection to someone else on campus, usually a peer group in their peer group, they are like 45% more likely to stay through graduation. So developing lessons, developing activities where students are making connections to each other beyond just like, here's my homework and whatever else. That's a main goal of my pedagogy. And to think about online communities, games as a service where people are kind of rolling through different games and what makes them stick. Obviously part is like the stickiness of the gameplay or whatever, but some people lately, like Siege, for example, people keep talking about like, why is Siege like picking up and so popular? And it's the nature of the communication that's happening in the game, that they've made just the squads or the connections between people that they've either met online or friends in real life or whatever, that just like that camaraderie makes them keep coming back to that game and probably other games as well. So that's a really interesting way to almost combat the toxicity, because even though I know Rainbow Six Siege is a toxic game, but in terms of almost reinstilling like communication skills in people who are typically, we're all alone on our consoles playing games at our house. We maybe have lost a little bit of that ability to communicate with our fellow man.
I should send you some links to some of these papers that I've been reading on, because there's been a lot of recent research into online communities and like forming bonds online through games. And there's some really interesting things there. And then there's some deep dives in on like when you like there's a lot that comes down to trust and like how do you combat toxicity in that kind of place. And there's a lot of stuff where a lot of games do, I would say right now, and from the research, do it very wrong on like, it's always an opt-out for like voice communication instead of an opt-in. Like you have to give, like I trust this other person to hear me talk now. Like I know they won't be a shitlord to me. And we don't, there's a lot of games that don't do that. They just like, oh, you can talk or do whatever. Like they dump you in places that are honestly put you at a very vulnerable position. And that's not the best way to go about it. And there's a lot of research on forming friendships and bonds that completely contradicts pretty much everything that games do so far. And so I'm really excited to see that there's been a lot of research recently into that. And we talk about what games, like I said, haven't tackled. They aren't tackling this particularly well yet. I hope in the future they will as this research starts coming out more. And from a larger cultural shift, we start noticing that a lot of things that the communication that we have is very minimal and surface level, and we are probably becoming much lonelier as a society.
Yeah, and we're almost getting like an artificial hit of camaraderie or community where you feel like you are communicating, you feel like you are part of a community, but really you're actually detached and lonely. And because you feel like you do have that, you don't think perhaps that you need to go out and actually have that. Because when I have my friends on PSN or Xbox Live, but you really actually, for some people, don't. But you have that illusion that you do. So maybe because of that illusion, it stops you from going out and actually getting it, and then perpetuating the cycle almost.
Yeah. Or those things on PSN or through the internet and stuff are very superficial friendships. They never progress into that deeper where you can actually like, that's great. I've been playing games with this person online, but we never talk about anything seriously. But there's a bunch of the people need those deeper bonds. They don't need a ton of those deeper bonds, as research has shown, but you need some, and you need people that you can talk to very openly about life and what's going on. And games, the way that's set up right now, doesn't really give you easy ways to transition to that deeper connection.
Right. I feel like in some ways the fandom around games that have deeper content almost like lend themselves to having those deeper conversations, because you're talking about like difficult topics about certain games. So then you start to have those, maybe you're more readily able to access those communications between people. But I feel like even those games are few and far between.
So
yeah, I don't know. Wow, Ted, thanks for that question. That was a really good conversation. If you want to send us a question for us to discuss on a future episode, just hit us up on Patreon, Prof and Dev Play Games. Search us there. And why don't we move into what we've been playing? Might be a little less serious. Or maybe not. I don't know what we've been playing.
No, it's pretty serious. Not really. So yeah, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the Anthem?
Yeah, let's start with the Anthem and then move on to the secret game that I don't know that you've been playing. Let's start with the one that I know about. So did you play the demo on PC this weekend?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
I wasn't even home really to do it. So And then let's be honest, another game came out that was taking a lot of my time when I was playing games.
I think I might know what that is. So let's start with Anthem. So I was hoping to get on this weekend, try it on the PC. And I got on, downloaded, everything worked out flawlessly. There was no problem like there was last week with the Xbox, or just in general. So I texted my friend Brad, said I'll be on if you want to play. I didn't know if he was going to get on or not. So I started a mission by myself. Then he got on, and we eventually figured out how to get onto a squad together. And then we rolled through the rest of that mission, where last week I had gotten to the part where Matthias had split into 3, right? Yeah. And then I was able to pick up right after that and then continue the rest. and took me a little while to get used to the controls on the keyboard. I had to remap some of the keys, and then flying with the mouse was a little. I kept flying in the walls a little bit. But once I got it all figured out, I actually really like how it plays on PC. And then it was really fun. Like, it was really fun just doing the quests, the combat. There's enough strategy with all your different skills, managing the cooldowns, and eventually unlocking the next javelin, which I chose Storm, which basically just don't touch the ground. Just fly all around, shooting fire and ice. And it was a really good... I feel like most in my four, all three were Rangers, and then there was me as Storm, and I felt like there was some good synergy going on between Storm and Ranger. And then we did some free play, which felt pretty empty. There wasn't a lot to do. We eventually stumbled across a couple quests, but I'm hoping when that game goes live, there's more to it. So I kind of with Anthem, I've gone from like, I don't really care, to last week kind of not being super excited at all, to this week coming back to like, and then ending with like, this is pretty fun. Like, doing co-op with Brad, we spent like 2.5 hours last night playing. It was a lot of fun to play with my friend, and obviously we're talking about other things while we're playing, but also just talking about our builds and how the game's going. It was really fun. The weird thing is, I don't think this demo sold me on buying Anthem, but I'm pretty sure this demo sold me on buying into EA Premier on computer for $100 a year, being able to have access to the full game of Anthem, plus hopefully all the other EA games that are coming out this year.
You get all of Anthem?
Yeah.
With the EA Premier thing on PC?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Really?
You get every full game that EA puts out. It's like Game Pass, basically, but for EA. So if Jedi Fallen Order comes out this year in the fall, that's a $60 game. Anthem's a $60 game. So I want to buy both those games. So instead, pay $100, which is less than the two combined. Obviously, you don't own the games, but Brad and I were talking last night about how it felt good, and we were interested in playing the game. I thought the story and the writing was really good, actually. I was pretty engaged with that little snippet. But we're both talking about how we don't care about the end game. Once we get through the campaign, we're going to be done. So I don't think it's a game that I need to own. It's a game that I want to play through the campaign. And I think Jedi Fallen Order is going to be the same way. So feels like I will probably buy into EA Premier on the computer, on PC, and play Anthem that way. And also, by doing that, you get Anthem a week early, I guess, the 15th instead of the 22nd.
I know. I've seen the giant matrix of like when you can actually play. Yeah. God damn it.
Yeah, there's a divorce between the marketing people and the fucking creatives on that game, but I think that's true industry wide. So yeah, I it's like I feel like 80% like into the game, and I think if I played a little bit more, I would be more invested, because the story is what did it. Like, when I was playing with Brad, I was like, oh, I'm just doing this cutscene, I'll be there in a second. He was already loaded up, ready to go to the next mission. He's like, oh, I'm not looking to look at the cutscenes, I'm going to look at it when I buy it. Once I play the game, I'll have watched the story. And I'm thinking to myself, like, the story's what's going to sell me. Like, I need to see if the story is good. The gameplay already feels pretty good. I need to see if the story is good. Because if it's not good, if I don't think this little snippet they have here in the demo is good, I'm probably not going to like the rest of the story. So I want to see what they're doing in it. And it was really funny. I thought there were some good comedy beats, some good seriousness, some food for thought. A couple times I was chuckling, and Brad was like, so what are you laughing at? I'm like, watching this cutscene, and what's happening right now is pretty interesting.
It is well written. Like, the whole thing, I mean, it shows, this is where I was like, BioWare, even though it's not, there's been churn at BioWare, and of course there's churn. It's like, people aren't going to stay at the same game company for decades, typically. So... Right. But they have ingrained in that company good writing. And the people there learn from the people that probably have left. And it shows. It shows that they know how to, like, make well-written characters that you're like, oh, this was cool. Like, Matthias was a cool character and written very well. Like, I'm like, this character was cool. I want to see more of this. I want to see where this goes.
Yep, me too.
And so that appreciate. Also, God, I'm almost certain it's the same voice actor from Morden from Mass Effect 2 and 3.
Right.
I'm so certain it's the same one. I've been trying to listen, because like no credits are out for it or anything, but I've just been listening to his voice, and I was listening to Morden's voice on YouTube, and I'm like, it has to be that same voice actor. So I can close my eyes and it's Morden again. in Anthem, which makes me happy.
Yeah. God, I love that. I love the ending of Warden's arc in Mass Effect 3.
Oh yeah.
So good. Oh man, I want to play that again.
Yeah, actually, every time there's the thing with Mass Effect and the whole thing. Why do I want to play that again? I think of characters that I really enjoyed and enjoyed interacting with, and it makes me go, I want to play that whole game again because I just want to be around that character again.
And the idea that you know, Renegade, Paragon, whatever, like the choices you make kind of have an impact on who is with you, who stays, the ending of their stories. Like you could kill people, you could not. Like I killed Tali. Ugh. Don't play after a depressing election. Don't play after a depressing election. I will always, those two things will be twinned in my mind forever now. Yeah, it just, that's what compels me. So I wanted to see if that was something that existed in Anthem. And to be honest, the way that Matthias is written, I at least will give them the benefit of the doubt. Like I kind of want to wait for reviews to hear what people think about the story. The rest of it, the end game, whatever, like that end game doesn't concern me. The mechanics I already know. I want to know if the story is worth seeing, because if it is, then I will for sure buy into the EA Premiere.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Premiere right now. Okay, so you get Anthem, you get VIP access to demos, sure. You get the Founders banner, you get Legion of Dawn armor, like, so all the pre-order stuff. So if you get in Premiere on Origin, even if you just said, hey, I'm just going to pay $15, if I'm just going to pay $15 just for the month, you still get all the bonuses on.
That's true.
On Anthem. I'm like, that's cool. Especially if I'm not interested in, like, if I just played through the story in a month. And I'm done. I can just be like, all right, I'm done.
And you played it for $15. Hey, that's an idea too. I didn't think about that, because I would like to
play Anthem 7 days before launch.
Mm-hmm.
Extra content included with new EA. So you get the extra content. You get early access. Yep. Yeah.
That's a smart way to do it.
That might be the way to go. I mean, of course you don't own it, but
right.
I don't know if I care about owning it.
Well, thinking about Destiny, like the way I played it, like I played it over the course of a week and a half, and I was done. Like I finished the campaign and that's it. I don't need more. So I feel like Anthem's going to be similar to me, but I am interested in playing in a group, playing in a squad.
Yeah.
Because playing with someone that I could communicate with on what the fuck's it called, Discord, made all the difference. I don't know what the voiceover, the voice options are for Anthem if you're playing with randoms, but like that fucking color puzzle, like I didn't find a way to communicate with people. So
yeah, I would think they would have voice chat built in, but
proximity chat or chat for your
I have no clue.
Squad. I didn't really look into it. People are probably screaming right now that it was in there somewhere. I didn't notice, but
whatever. Just use Discord, Skype, Hangouts,
right, so
all the other voice over internet stuff that you can use.
Exactly.
So you can just talk to the people you care about.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, Anthem. I enjoyed my time. I'm looking forward to playing more of it. It's something that's I'm not burning with hype, but I'm more than lukewarm now, and I think I might give it a go. Depending on how strong the reviews are, will depend on when I play. Like if the reviews are good and like you and Brad are probably playing, I'll jump on with you guys. If you guys are gonna wait and the reviews aren't terribly strong, I could wait as well.
Yeah.
So I got a couple other games that I played, but I'm gonna let you go and get back to mine.
So I'll go to the one that I wasn't expecting to play. I hadn't heard about playing. And I'm now a little obsessed with.
Oh shit.
So on Friday was a work thing as a research. I saw this thing last week. I'm like, hey, we need to look at this. Super popular. It's Dota 2, but not Dota 2.
What?
So in Dota 2, there's an arcade mode. I didn't know. I haven't played Dota 2 before. But there's an arcade mode, and that's where people can make custom maps with like custom rules and everything.
Right. Uh-huh.
And the most popular thing on there now is a thing called Dota Auto Chess.
Oh,
and
shit.
If you go to Twitch and you look at the people like streaming Dota, about a third to a half, depending on the time of the day, are streaming this specific thing called Dota Auto Chess. Don't let the chess part fool you. It's not actually chess. It's just played on what looks like a chessboard. Beyond that, not chess. So, but it's the most popular thing on the arcade. It came out, it seems like early this year, so sometime in early January, and it's made by 5 people out of China. They're actually a company, a development company, who made a mod in Dota 2. This map is a total mod of a game they want to have. They sell codes on eBay to get candies, which you can redeem for cosmetics in the Dota Auto Chess map.
So they've monetized their mod through Dota 2?
Yes. So that's
Jesus.
The super bizarre thing about it. But we're talking about like millions of players a month playing this thing. So let's talk about Dota Auto Chess.
Oh my god. Okay, I am very surprised. I did not think. I thought you were going to say something else.
It's so good. It's such a cool thing. It's super complicated in a weird way and not. So it's typically with 8 players. You each have your own little chessboard. It's an 8x8 chessboard, whatever, graphics, whatever. But what you're doing is, you play around either against random creeps. That's usually the first 4 matches you'll play. These little skirmishes will be against like just AI, and then you'll randomly start getting paired. Not paired. You'll be playing other people of the 8 people's teams. And so you're constructing. And this isn't chess. This is where the other piece. Every round, you're getting a list of, I would say, a store of 5 characters, and you have to buy them and place them on the board. So you're drafting them.
Right, and you have like limited resources to do that with.
Yes, and you get gold, so they cost different amounts, and so you're drafting them. And there is a communal pool of all these figures. They call them chesses. This is so Chinese. They call them chesses. Yes. And so there's a communal pool of all these. So if you take one from the pool, someone else doesn't get that figure.
Right.
Just like drafting in Magic or card games. It's a little bit different, but similar principle.
It's like choosing an Overwatch hero, then that one's not available for anyone else.
Exactly. So you do that. You have money, and they range from 1 to 5 gold. End of rounds, you get some gold if you won or lost, if you're on win streaks or not. And you have a limit of number of pieces you can have on the board. Now, the more interesting part becomes that once you have 3 of, let's say, there's different classes. There's a race and a class, or a species and a class. Let's say I have 3... I should say you're going for width and depth, depending on what you want to do. So like you might want like I'm going to stack warriors. So there's a number of warriors. So once you get to 3 warriors in your piece lineup, all the warriors get a bonus. 6 the same way, but they have to be unique, and there are 6 unique warriors in the pool. So you need to have those 6. And there's multiple copies of each warrior, because anytime you get 3 of the same and put it on the board, they level up. They combine into 1 to go up to another level. And so they're stronger.
And that clears 2 spaces on your team?
And so let's say and they can go to level 3. So and so you can combine 3 level 2s into a level 3 for like end game, like super strong. So to do that, you would need, 9 total level 1s that combine into 3 level 2s that combine into 1 level 3. But I mean, as people are taking the pieces from the pool, you may never get to that piece because other people have taken that piece. And so,
can I see what you need and be strategic about? Okay.
You can, while you're playing, you can cut around to everyone else's board and see what they're in. Are they in mechs? Are they in warriors? Are they in goblins, orcs, elves? All these different classes. So you're like running around like because you only have like 30 seconds between matches to do your purchasing, to place your pieces on the board, because you have a stable as well, and you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can have 8 pieces held back that you're like trying to just hold so you can combine them later and store. So you're like buzzing around the map trying to see what other people are in, if you should move out of a certain class or type and like buy up a different type. And they all have different abilities if you have like unique numbers of elves or knights or humans, and they all have racial stuff, but all trigger on like having 2 of these, 4 of these, 6 unique of these, whole thing. So there's this crazy strategy of like what you're doing there, but you only get presented with 5 at a time, and you have an economy rolling in of money. It's like how much do you buy, and you invest in things, you can sell things back. But when you sell it back, it goes into the pool. Someone else might get it. And so it just goes 30 seconds, and then you're auto-matched with someone else, with someone else's team. And your team will then go fight someone else, because it just picks and chooses. It's not like 2 people are facing off. It's just like your team fights this team, and you fight someone else's team. It could not be the same person. It doesn't matter.
And do you control your characters in that battle? Okay.
No, it's auto. It's auto. So your placement does matter on the board of like putting your tanks forward, putting your like maybe squishier characters behind the tanks, but then there's assassins that might jump over your front line and attack from behind.
Oh my god, it sounds rad.
It is so cool.
Super strategic.
It's so cool. I've been obsessed. We played on Friday, and I'm like, I see why this is so popular. It's incredible. And then basically how you lose the game is for, let's say they're on your board, you're fighting, you lose the fight. For each enemy piece that still exists on your board, you lose a percentage of your health. Mm-hmm. And everyone starts at 100. Once you get to 0, you're knocked out. Usually games, no one's usually knocked out until like the 20 to 25th round.
Is there a way that Valve would shut down the monetization of this mod?
I have no clue. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know. Actually, I'm mostly waiting. I'm like, when is they going to make just a standalone thing and not have this inside Dota 2? Because there's a lot of quality of life stuff that is not great in the game because it is in Dota 2. Like, they just have to work around. Like, selecting pieces is a little weird. There's just some weird stuff going on that could easily be cleaned up if it was its own game.
What a great ad for that game if they had have it in the can ready to go, right? And then like make this mod that gets this huge buzz. By the way,
I was reading Reddit. They don't have it in the can. Like they did it here because it was cheap. Like,
of
there are
course.
5 guys like that. They can just reuse all the hero models from Dota.
Right.
Create mod. They haven't had to create any art assets. All they have to do is create the mechanics, and they did. And it is by far like the most popular thing in Dota 2 right now. Almost more than Dota 2 itself.
Well, Dota 2 is not on the decline. That sounds strong, but it was losing numbers. So maybe this is a shot in the arm.
It is a shot in the arm, but it's a completely different game.
Right.
Like, it exists in there, but this is not Dota. This has nothing to do with your typical MOBA gameplay at all.
Right. I wonder if Valve gets a cut at all of those sales.
They don't. Not the eBay sales. Not the keys.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy then, because then that gives Valve nothing.
No, I mean, it's a free-to-play game. And this is a free-to-play map. Yeah. But you don't.
But the whole model for Dota 2 is selling those cosmetics, and you're saying that doesn't touch this at all.
Nope.
So, what's the incentive for Valve to keep that up?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. But
spin it out. Buy it from them. Spin it out.
Holy crap! It's so much fun. It's so absolutely insane. It's so complicated going in. I'm glad that I had my coworker. It was just we just did a 6-person thing on Friday, end of day Friday, and played like 2 matches. And it was great because we were all just on Discord and we're yelling at each other and going, "Oh my god, what do we do? What is going on? Why is this happening?" And then like there's a few of them that have played it before, at least understand a base level, and they're like, "Oh, you need to buy this or do that, and that's not working." And you'd be shocked at how quickly the time goes by during that preparation, and you're like scrambling to just buy the things that you want. You can spend money to re-roll your store, So if you don't like your units, you can pay 2 to refresh it. But you got to balance your economy, and there's interest on the money that you have. So there's a whole economy side to it of like when you want to dump your money, when you want to save it. When there's strats on like being like, fine, I'm gonna lose all my early games, so I go on a lose streak and get more, because you get gold for being on a lose streak as kind of like a rubber banding. So there's a whole strategy of being like, fine, I'm just gonna like lose a streak, like 10 games straight at the beginning, matches straight, so that I can just then switch my team and just have a ton of money to have like a higher level, so I can put more units on the board and switch really quickly and then just dominate the end game.
That's like sports where like you're headed toward the first draft pick, so you make sure you lose so that you get that first draft pick. Like you just want to game the system. It sounds like there's systems on top of systems here.
There is. I want to play. I would love to play this with you at some point. I think there's something here that I'm
install
sure.
it after this show. You have sold me on
because
checking
it's
it out.
Completely strange and whatever, but
yeah,
very addictive. Because it is very casual. There's a lot of randomness to it, so you never feel like, man, if I was just this much better, I'd do great. Like, yeah, there's skill involved in understanding like when you should switch out of certain strategies or like double down into them, and placement kind of matters, but it's not the biggest thing. So it feels a little bit more casual, but in that way also makes it much more approachable on just learning the systems and going like, yeah, I wiped out and the first one wiped out. Whatever. Next, let's do this again.
Right. Oh man.
Yeah, it's super bizarre. You pretty much have to read a wiki. There's no strong in-game information. There's just like read wikis to understand what like how many pieces exist in the pool of what type and what are the super rare pieces of. I can tell you right now, trolls. There's only like I was like, man, trolls are good. Yeah, the problem is there's like one very common troll and one very rare troll. And you want to get them both, and it's very hard to get that rare one. So there's only a couple in the pool, and they don't spawn that often. Oh, because there's a rarity to the shop. Like there's commons, uncommons, rares, and ultra rares, basically.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a ridiculous thing. I don't know. It is such a modern day way a game is made now. Like,
right.
I look at this, I'm like, this. I mean, it's how the MOBA genre came to exist in the first.
I'd say it's how Dota came. Dota was a mod off of freaking Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
That's fucking like a mod on top of a mod. Jesus.
Yeah, basically. And I look at it, I'm like, yeah, this is probably one of the next really big things. And I am waiting for when's someone gonna make a standalone of this? Not even this company. Like,
when's someone gonna Fortnite it?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And it's gonna happen.
We've seen that with the game that we both been playing, Wargroove, where basically someone looked at Advance Wars from 10 years ago and said, where the fuck is Advance Wars? We'll make one. Yeah,
they did. Which we can transition to that now, because...
Yeah. Speaking of addictive and all this stuff, I've been waiting for this game for a while. I felt like it was going to be my Fire Emblem fix in that, that turn-based, grid-based strategy game. The difference with this is that you don't really have an attachment to your individual units. They're kind of just your manufacturing rangers and knights and whatever else, and then kind of being strategic about throwing them against the enemy. And if they die, as long as your commander doesn't die, as opposed to Fire Emblem, every single character is unique, and when you die, you kind of want to reset and save scum.
Except Caesar, the best boy.
The best boy. I haven't got to the point where he's been a commander yet, but apparently he becomes a commander.
I've done one side mission where he's a commander.
Nice. I think I'm Act 4. No, Act 1, Chapter 4, I think. I have not gotten that far.
Okay.
But goddamn, is it good. It is fucking good. And there's so much to this game. You can, custom content, make your own campaigns. Just the strategy involved in the chapters that I played so far have been really engaging to me. There was, I think, Chapter 3, for some reason, I threw my head against it 4 or 5 times before I finally beat it, whereas the rest of them I beat the first time. But the missions are different for each one. One's take down the enemy or their stronghold. The next one's just ferry your villagers out of the area and make them safe, and then get your commander out. I described it as chess, just in terms of I'm constantly thinking about placement and putting characters together to get the critical hits. there's a lot to consider in terms of moving your people around and the economy and how much who to bill or what who to recruit, where to put them. It's amazing. It really is great. And $20 for this huge package full of like arcade mode, puzzle mode, campaign mode, custom content, crossplay with PC and Xbox and Switch. And it just looks good. You can build your own campaign with cutscenes and dialogue, and I can't wait to make my Game of Thrones knockoff. Just as soon as I kind of learn all the mechanics that I need to kind of get a first start going. It's addictive as hell. Last night after Anthem, I was bone tired at like 10:30. I'm like, let me just finish this little chapter in Wargroove and played for another 45 minutes before I passed out.
Yeah. Where am I? I'm at Act 3, Mission 1, which I haven't even tried yet, because I've been, right before it split off. I have 2 side missions in Act 2 that I can do now, and I'm messing with those. And one of them, this will be my 3rd time starting it. I've restarted it. Yeah, this will be my 3rd restart. Not because I've lost, because I just restarted it. Because I'm just like, no, this isn't working.
Right.
Gotta try again.
It
was just like, I'm not slogging this out. I can do better.
Yeah.
And it's a challenging game. I will give it that.
Sure
Holy
is.
crap. You will be punished if you do not plan your movements right. And which has taken me time to get used to again. Of being like, all right, I'm going to take my time and think through. I'm going to check where they can move, where I can move. Do I want to do that? Lots of pre-planning. It really rewards you for pre-planning. And like you said, those combinations, making sure you're recruiting the right stuff at the right time.
Moving them together. There was a point in that one where I died like 4 or 5 times where simply what happened was for one turn, I didn't realize, or I forgot or whatever, clicking on an empty space, the first option that pops up is in turn, and I accidentally clicked it again. There's no confirmation. I lost that turn. I lost one turn out of the whole sequence. I'm like, it'll be fine. I can catch up. I could not catch up, and I died. So I should have just restarted like you did.
Yeah. But beyond that, like the same stuff you said, it's a really well put together game, and it is very much in the way of, hey, we're never going to get another Advance Wars, it seems like, so might as well make it ourselves.
Right.
And they did.
And they didn't just copy it; they put like new stuff into it, right? They've kind of trimmed off the things that didn't work so well and added new things that work better. This groove mechanic is pretty fun.
Yeah.
You got your special power for your commander, basically.
Yeah, that's been good, and it's pretty interesting because I've now played 3 different commanders at this point, and their grooves are all different, and 4 different commanders at this point. Yeah, and they're all very different, and using them effectively is another huge part of the game. Like I said, Caesar's best boy. His is pretty great, but you have to use it very strategically. You need It's not something of like, oh, I just have their groove, their ultimate ready. It's going to be great. It's like, it is very good if you use it properly and plan your turn to use it right.
Right. Well, it just makes it so satisfying when you've been planning for like 3 or 4 moves, just like in chess. Like you see like 4 or 5 moves ahead, and you're like, if I could do this and they do that, like it's going to pay off down the road. And when you actually, the confluence of events actually hit that thing you wanted, it just fucking feels great.
Oh, it feels really good.
So rewarding.
But beyond that, I mean, it is very well put together. The potential for user-generated content is huge.
Yeah.
So huge.
Oh, man. Wait till the mod community gets a hold of it on Steam.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine. Like, you talk about, you're like, I want to do my Game of Thrones themed thing, like we have on Switch and everything, do it there, and, like, themed story. I can guarantee you someone's just going to just full-on mod Game of Thrones in there.
Oh,
like,
totally.
Change all the commanders, change all the art, everything. And be like, yeah, guess what? You're playing through the epic of Fire and Ice. Enjoy.
And that's going to make me buy the game again on PC.
Yeah. It will happen. I know it will.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know much else to say. Like, it's super good. Like, if you want a good strategy game, yeah, this is it. This is what you got for a while.
Well, this is scratching the itch till Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
And, now that I played Advance Wars a little bit on Wii U when one of the games came to it, Virtual Console. But now that I'm playing more of this, I'm like, now I really see the difference between what people were liking about it and lamenting when Fire Emblem Awakening kind of took off and Intelligent Systems basically said, nope, we're just doing Fire Emblem now. Because you really did lose something. It's a very different game, even though it superficially looks similar. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about, I didn't get to talk about last week, was Monster Hunter World, which I love again. Did a bunch of co-op with my friend Brad. Finally learning how to bring him into my missions by doing the SOS flare and just hunting down monsters and basically just these co-op boss fights and bringing in other. Forgot to take my SOS down, so more and more players joined us, and it was a fun time. So just really quickly to want to shout out how fun that game is and looking forward to playing more of it. Last one is Smash Brothers. The Piranha Plant came out, and that character is really fun to play. It's just so weird and different than the other characters.
Little tiny feet.
Little tiny feet, yep. I love the down special where you just like suck into your pot and then you can kind of like tilt in different directions and shoot out. There's a lot to like with the Piranha Plant. I'm looking forward to the rest of the characters that come. Just Sakurai and the team puts so much love into these. Piranha Plant was a great choice, I think. In retrospect. No,
it's definitely different, and it just definitely it shows that they are not out of creative space for character and like just design. Like the design space is still open. Even with all these characters, they can still come up with new mechanics and interesting combinations. So I'm pretty excited for the other fighters for the rest of the year and what they're going to do with them. Like, I'm really excited for Joker. Like, I'm sure it's not just going to be your standard fighter. Like, there's going to be something there. Like, how are the personas going to tie into it? Because I'm sure they are.
Right.
I don't know. I'm super excited for that. And I saw a thing that sorry, what's the guy's Sakurai?
Yeah, Sakurai.
Right, is a huge fan of Persona.
Oh yeah.
Like, well, that's why it's there. I was like, oh, I've now seen interviews where he's like, yeah, I love this game. And he loved Persona 5. Like, yep. He made sure that he beat all of it, and I think would have theoretically gotten the platinum, but he wasn't able to optimize one character, basically.
Right. Well, that's the reason why Fire Emblem is so big now, actually, because he was such a fan of it. He put the characters into Melee, and people were like, who the fuck are these blue-haired sword dudes? And then people started researching, and then when Awakening finally hit, blew up. And part of it's just how many characters were in fucking Smash Brothers because of Sakurai's fandom. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, Sora from Kingdom Hearts, is he gonna make it in? Like, Banjo-Kazooie? What games does Sakurai play? That's our in here, basically. What a great week for games.
It has been a lot of fun.
Anything else before we wrap up?
No, nothing new. I mean, I've played more standard stuff that you've heard plenty of before. Magic Arena, doing great still. Dragalia Lost, still playing that. New events constantly. It's still the Chinese New Year right now. Events,
oh, correct.
So,
right.
They're doing special stuff for that. You know, my go-tos between now Wargroove and Dota Auto Chess.
I'm going to install that right when we get off here. All right, my friends. Well, thanks for listening to episode 177. Again, if you want to support us on Patreon, just search Prof and Dev Play Games. He is at SummerSpeak. I am at Prof Plays Games, and we will see you next week.
All right. Later, everyone.